नमस्कार दोस्तों, कैसे हैं आप सब। मैं हूं पारस चोपड़ा, आपका अपना मैथ्स और फिज़िक्स का टीचर। मैं आईआईटी दिल्ली से इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग में बीटेक हूं। इस यूट्यूब चैनल के माध्यम से हम और आप आईआईटी तथा अन्य एग्ज़ाम्स की पढ़ाई करेंगे। कई बच्चों के मैसेज आ रहे थे कि सर ये क्लासेस रेगुलर रहेंगी, ये कोर्स रेगुलर रहेंगे या नहीं। कुछ बच्चे अन्य सवाल भी कर रहे थे, इसलिए आज की क्लास स्टार्ट करने से पहले चलिए उन सवालों के भी जवाब दे देते हैं। ये चैनल उन लोगों के लिए उपयोगी है जो 11th 12th 11वीं 12वीं में मैथ्स और फिज़िक्स की तैयारी कर रहे हैं। उन बच्चों के लिए जो एंट्रेंस एग्ज़ाम्स दे रहे हैं, जैसे जेई, नीट, एपी एग्ज़ाम, उन लोगों के लिए भी ये चैनल बहुत उपयोगी है। अन्य लोग जो ज्ञान अर्जित करने की चेष्टा रखते हों, उन लोगों का भी इस चैनल पर स्वागत है। ये चैनल कॉन्सेप्ट को अच्छे से समझाने में सभी बच्चों की बहुत मदद करेगा। जो लोग कोचिंग कर रहे हैं पहले से, उनके लिए ये एक्स्ट्रा एडवांटेज है क्योंकि ये मार्क्स को बूस्ट करेगा। ये वीडियोस रेगुलरली अपलोड होने वाले हैं और पूरा 11th एंड 12th का मैथ्स एंड फिज़िक्स का सिलेबस कवर करेंगे। तो चलिए आज हम प्रोजेक्टाइल मोशन की क्लास शुरू करते हैं। Projectile motion is an application of kinematics equations, but it has two different directions to focus at. So we send a projectile from the ground at an angle of theta to the horizontal. Then the projectile follows a parabolic path and then it reaches to the other end on the ground. So for a projectile, we divide the motion into two parts. One is the horizontal velocity part and the other is the vertical velocity part. And the connecting link between the horizontal and the vertical velocity is the time. So the time taken for the horizontal motion will be the same as the time taken for the vertical motion. Okay? But everything else will be different. Okay, so first we say the velocity, the initial velocity has two components. One is the x component, which is the vx component, and the vertical component is the y component, which is vy. So along the horizontal direction, the velocity will not change because along the horizontal there is no acceleration because there is no force. So along the horizontal, we can say the velocity will always be equal to Vx. And acceleration along the horizontal, it will be 0. Now let us see what the equations will be along the vertical. So along the vertical, the initial velocity will be equal to Vy. And the acceleration along the vertical will be equal to negative g or negative 10 meter per second square. Okay, so using these equations, we can calculate a lot of properties of the projectile. First is the maximum height attained by the projectile. And we can also calculate the distance along the horizontal traveled by the projectile, which is also known as the range. Okay, so in terms of V and H max, what will be the range? Okay, so the question is you have to calculate what H max will be and you have to calculate what the range R will be. So for calculating the H max, you will use the equation height is equal to the initial velocity v by t minus 1/2 gt square. Or if you don't want to use this quadratic equation, you can also use the other equation. Which one equation will you use? The height max is equal to final velocity square minus the initial velocity square divided by 2g. But since the acceleration is also negative, so we will put negative 2g in the denominator. So this is equal to vy square by 2g, and vy square is nothing but v sine theta. So the maximum height becomes v square sine square theta divided by 2g. Okay. Now coming to the range. For the range, we can say the range is equal to the velocity along the horizontal multiplied by the time taken for the entire journey. And we know that the time taken by the entire journey is equal to double the amount of time taken for it to reach the maximum height, which is equal to Vy divided by, okay. So what is the time taken till the point it reaches the maximum height? The final velocity along the y direction is 0, and this is equal to the initial velocity minus gt. So from this you can simply get time is equal to Vy upon g, which is equal to V sine theta upon g. Okay, so this is the easier way out. Whenever you are calculating time in kinematics or projectile motion, you should avoid using quadratic equation s is equal to ut plus half gt square. Then the calculation becomes wrong. For time, always use this equation, but for position, you can use that equation. Okay. So that means the total time taken to cover the entire range will be twice of this value, which is equal to 2 times v sine theta upon g. Okay. So therefore, the range will be equal to this time multiplied by the horizontal velocity, which is equal to u times cos theta times 2 times u sine theta upon g. Okay. And then 2 sine theta cos theta is nothing but sine of 2 theta. So the range become u square sine 2 theta over g, because sine 2 theta is 2 sine theta cos theta. Okay. So for a projectile, you should know how to calculate the maximum height. You should know how to calculate the range. You should know how to calculate the time from any point to any point. And you should know how to take the components of velocity along different directions. Do not memorize the formulas, because what happens is that in some question they also give projectiles which are along an inclined plane. Okay? So if you memorize your formula, you will get a wrong answer in this case. Just go by the fundamental equations, resolve into two components, along the horizontal and along the vertical. And along the horizontal, acceleration is 0, and along the vertical, acceleration is negative g. Okay, so we have arrived at the formula r is equal to u square sine 2 theta over g. So at what angle will we have the maximum range? So for maximum range, sine of 2 theta should be equal to 1, which means theta is 45. So maximum range will become u square over g. Okay. Okay, so let's do some problems from projectile. The trajectory of a projectile is given by y is equal to alpha x minus beta x square. Alpha and beta are constants, x and y horizontal vertical distances. The angle of projection theta and the maximum height attained are respectively given by. Let us first calculate the angle of projection. So we have a projectile like this, and angle of projection is decided by what the components of initial velocity are along the horizontal or vertical. So let's say this is the velocity initial, and we have to calculate this angle theta. Okay, so if we know the equation of the projectile is given by alpha x minus beta x square, how can you find this angle theta? Can you use derivatives somewhere? Can we say that if this is the y direction and this is the x direction, what will be the derivative of the curve at the origin? ओके ये हमारे पास प्रोजेक्टाइल है, राइट, प्रोजेक्टाइल का कर्व है. लेट अस से द ओरिजिन से प्रोजेक्टाइल लॉन्च हुआ था. So we have the y direction, we have the x direction, and the projectile was launched from here. So the launch velocity is along the tangential direction to the curve, right? And we know that the tangent of the curve at the point is equal to the slope of the curve at that point. Can we say tan of theta is equal to dy by dx? So now can you try the question? So dy by dx at x is equal to 0 is just equal to alpha, which is equal to tan theta. So what will be the launch angle? It will be equal to the inverse, tan inverse of alpha. The second part asks you to calculate the maximum height. So maximum height पर slope क्या होगा? So what should be the position at maximum height? So x is equal to alpha by 2 beta, and then you can calculate the maximum height. So इस पॉइंट पर you know the x coordinate. So y coordinate कैसे निकालोगे इस पॉइंट पर? Equation में you put x is equal to alpha by 2 beta, then y will be the maximum height. लॉन्च एंगल के लिए you will do tan theta is equal to dy by dx, and maximum height के लिए you will do 0 is equal to dy by dx. Okay, so that is why I was saying there is no need to memorize the formulas. In JEE they would never ask you the formula straight away. They will ask you conceptual questions like this one. दोस्तों, यदि आपको कोई फीडबैक देना है तो नीचे कमेंट सेक्शन में उसको पोस्ट कर सकते हैं. अन्यथा मेरे ईमेल, टेलीग्राम या व्हाट्सएप के माध्यम से भी आप मुझसे कांटेक्ट कर सकते हैं. आपके संदेश का मुझे इंतज़ार रहेगा. अगली वीडियो तक नमस्कार, गुड बाय, जय हिंद.